The statement made as to why the Major Richard Starr Act was blocked is pretty wild. And what's really going to ruffle some feathers out there is that there's a single Republican. Yes, that's right. Republican, not Democrat, that has blocked the passing of the Major Richard Starr Act for veterans who I would argue are part of the most disabled of the veteran community. If that ruffled your feathers, buckle up because it's only going to get worse. And here we go. All right, Republican leadership. So this is from the U.S. Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs. Republican leadership blocks vote on stalled bipartisan legislation to provide relief for combat injured veterans and their families. Top Republican of the Armed Services Committee blocked Blumenthal's attempt, this is a key part here, attempt to set up a vote for the Major Richard Starr Act for 50,000 combat injured veterans forced to medically retire early. Forced to medically retire, not discharge, retire. Okay. Yesterday, Republican leadership blocked two attempts from Senate's Veterans Affairs Committee ranking member Richard Blumenthal's to advance stalled bipartisan legislation to deliver more than 50,000 combat injured veterans their full military benefits and financial certainty. The Major Richard Starr Act would ensure that these veterans could receive their full DoD retirement and Department of Veteran Affairs disability payments, which currently receives a dollar-for-dollar reduction. It's kind of like those who are retired. They did 20 years. They have a rating above 50%. Boom, they get both. Not for those who are medically retired. All right. Despite its overwhelming bipartisan support and importance for veterans, Senate Armed Services Committee Chairman Roger Wicker, there's an R there, blocked Blumenthal's motion to pass the legislation and fix this injustice for disabled veterans. With his attempt to pass the bill unanimously blocked, Senator Blumenthal then offered a compromise motion that would have set up a single roll call vote on the bill at a 60-vote threshold. The motion would have waived all procedural votes to protect floor time and gave Republican Majority Leader Thune discretion to call up the vote at any point before the end of the year. Wicker also blocked this motion, denying a bill with 76 bipartisan co-sponsors with a single vote. If you're curious if I'm a fan of Blumenthal, the answer is no. All right. If you're curious that I voted Democrat, I've never voted Democrat. If you're curious that I voted Republican, I've never voted Republican. All right. I'm just reading what happened. So don't be butthurt at me. Blumenthal pressed for legislative action for impacted combat injured veterans and rebuked Republican leadership arguments for blocking the bill. The Major Richard Starr Act isn't double dipping. It isn't overly generous. It isn't going to break the bank, so to speak. To the federal government as a whole, with its trillions of dollars, it is a minuscule fraction. To those veterans, it's not only a matter of quality of life and sometimes survival, it's fundamental fairness. They were promised. They've earned it. They deserve it. They need it. They ought to have it. And this measure simply would assure a vote. We ought to face our responsibilities. Maybe my colleagues, even though 76 of them have co-sponsored, that's 3/4 of this body. Maybe it would still fail for whatever reason, but I'd like to take my chances. Senator Wicker blocked the Major Richard Starr Act, citing that he believed the legislation would be too expensive and provide compensation that he considered double dipping, despite delivering separate benefits from two different agencies. My colleague is asking for an entitlement that does not amount to a double benefit and that we can't afford. Until authors of this proposal identify a way to offset the expense or to make it less expensive, we should not move forward with this legislation. Therefore, I do object. It's too expensive, everyone, to take care of those who are the most disabled out of all of us. It's too expensive. Blumenthal refuted Wicker's notion that receiving military retirement pay from DoD and disability compensation from VA's double dipping, right? It already happens. I want to respond on double dipping. Let's be clear that these are two separate programs, and the right to payment under each of them is separately deserved. Not everyone who's entitled to retirement pay gets disability benefits. You got to be 50 or above, 50% rated or above. You have to be in that club that nobody wants to join of being combat injured. Not just any injury, combat injured. And it's a separate form of right that in no way involves double dipping as we commonly refer to it. What this is talking about, I had a VFW, the National Legislative Director of that time, in my basement. We did a video. His leg was blown off, literally. He has a prosthetic. He had to retire early. That's who the Major Registrar Act would help, not the person who rolled his ankle. It's the person who ain't got no ankle. The retirement pay is for years of service in the military. Disability compensation is for the loss of future earnings due to service-connected injuries or illnesses. And I just want to make clear this point is about really equity and fairness. The defense bill this year authorizes more than $1.1 trillion in military spending. Blumenthal rejected Wicker's argument that there's no money to take care of combat injured veterans and their families, especially when the Senate Republicans just spent $3.4 trillion to provide tax cuts for the ultra wealthy. CBO told us that Republican-supported tax cuts explode the deficit by about $3.4 trillion. Let me repeat that. $3.4 trillion, in large part tax cuts to people who didn't need them. These veterans need these benefits. This cost is a minuscule fraction of those trillions. This country can afford to do right by these combat injured veterans. The DoD Office of the Actuary has indicated that they could implement the Registrar Act in a, quote, actuarially sound manner. It's not too costly. It's financially sound, meaning they can do it. Blumenthal also emphasized the impact and difference this legislation would make in providing financial support for combat injured veterans. The bill doesn't create some great new overly generous benefit, but it would enormously impactful and beneficial for each of those retirees who would be affected. The average is about $1,200 a month. It's not a fortune, but it would make a difference in the lives of these combat injured veterans. It simply ensures that the benefits we promised and the benefits they've earned are the benefits that are now delivered. It's that simple. Listen, I'm not a Blumenthal fan at all. Every time I watch a Senate hearing in his line of questioning, it just makes me just want to shake him as hard as I can with grace, you know? But dude, he's right. Like him or hate him, doesn't matter. He's right. Currently, only veterans with disability ratings above 50% and more than 20 years of service are eligible to receive the full military benefits, leaving behind more than 50,000 combat injured military retirees. The Major Registrar Act will fix this unjust policy for medical retirees with a combat-related disability, providing them their full VA disability and DoD retirement payments. This legislation has overwhelming support from the majority of both chambers of Congress, with 76 bipartisan co-sponsors in the Senate and 304 bipartisan co-sponsors in the House. It's named in honor of Major Richard A. Starr, a decorated war veteran who was forced to medically retire due to his combat-related injuries. Major Starr fought to fix this injustice facing combat-injured veterans until he lost his battle with cancer in 2021. That's the transcript that you can take a look at. Right? You can also watch it here. Anyways, yikes, homie. Blumenthal's right. This thing has to pass, and now it's time I'm going to get a vote because of a single Republican. Chew on that one.